people ask me what it took to become a scratch golfer, my answer is usually the same. I learned to control the club face. In this video, I'm going to explain why club face control is arguably the top skill for golfers who want to lower their scores. If you aren't laser focused on it, maybe this quote from Scottie Scheffler's longtime coach Randy Smith will motivate you. Scotty's whole game is based on knowing where the club face is. The only things we've ever done with this swing have been what has been needed to keep that feeling of club face awareness in place. So what I'm going to do is define face angle, how it affects scoring, why it's the glue of the swing, and some ideas on how to solve the biggest problem. Hi, my name is Jon Sherman. In case you don't know me, I'm the author of The 4 Foundations of Golf. On this channel, my goal is to give you actionable golf advice that is easy to understand to lower your scores, but more importantly, have more fun doing it. Okay, so let's define face angle so that we're all on the same page. It's simply the direction the club face is pointed at impact relative to the target line. Here's an image to show you open, square, and closed club faces. Now, where the club face points is the primary determinant of where the ball starts. So for a right-handed golfer, if the club face is open, the ball's going to start more to the right, and vice versa for a closed club face. This is actually really important because we had the wrong information for years. When I was a kid, they always told us that club path is mostly responsible for where the golf ball starts. It actually screwed me up pretty badly. We now know that face angle has about a 65 to 80% influence on the start direction. Now, swing path does play a smaller role in start direction, but it's important to know that as loft decreases, face angle gains more influence on start direction. So in other words, it becomes more critical with longer irons, hybrids, fairway woods, and most importantly, your driver. Now let's talk about why I believe face control is one of the most influential scoring skills. If you've been watching my YouTube videos, read my book, or listening to the Sweet Spot podcast, you always know that I'm preaching we have to get rid of double bogeys or worse to lower our scores. I know I'm a broken record. I mean, look at this chart from ShotScope. You can see that doubles or worse are a huge separation factor on all levels of golf. And this massive separation in scoring is mostly explained by what I call uh-oh shots. If you look at this image, you can see that between different scoring levels, higher handicaps are hitting way more shots in trouble versus the better players. I know, shocking information. I've confirmed this with multiple data tracking companies like Arcos and ShotScope that errant tee shots are the leading cause of these double bogeys or worse. Now, why is that? That's the most important question. It's because these players have very poor face control with their driver and other clubs that they're using off the tee. In short, the club face is either way too closed or way too open at impact. You simply cannot score well in golf if you're spraying your tee shots all over the place. It's just too much to overcome. This used to be my biggest struggle, and I worked really hard on my face control with my driver for years. You can check out the link to my driver practice guide in the description. I'll let you download it for free because I'm such a nice guy. Additionally, with approach play, when you hit more greens in regulation, it is the clearest way to lower your scores. And you can't do that if you're always in recovery situations like being in the trees or a fairway bunker, or worse, out of bounds. In addition to that, it's much harder to hit greens with poor face control with your irons and other approach clubs. I just wanted to quickly thank the sponsor of this video, HackMotion. If you want a more stable club face and consistent golf swing, you need to stop guessing and start measuring. HackMotion is an awesome wrist sensor tool that I've used, and we work with them for years on our podcast, The Sweet Spot. Here's how it works. You simply take 10 swings and HackMotion analyzes your wrist motion to pinpoint the key faults affecting your ball flight. Then the app's going to prescribe a guided drill sequence tailored to your golf swing to help you fix those issues step by step. Kind of like having a personal swing coach anytime you practice who's incredibly focused on your club face control, the subject of this video. Once you complete all those drills, you can repeat the diagnosis to track your progress and see improvement right in the app. The sensor gives you great feedback. It can vibrate or make a noise. I've seen firsthand how HackMotion helps club face control, and if you're serious about improving, I think you should try it out. You can click the link below in the description to learn more and get an exclusive discount. All right, now that I've explained the scoring implications of club face control, let's talk about why face control is the glue that holds the curvature of your shots together. So the combination of your swing path and face angle will determine where the ball starts and then how it curves. Here's the interesting thing. You can pretty much make any swing path work if you have reasonable club face control. Let me show you an example. So the classic slicer has a very out to in in swing path. And you'll often hear people say, you gotta square the face at impact to play better golf, and that's actually technically bad advice, and here's why. So here's what happens with a face pointing square down the target line in a very out to in swing path. You're gonna get your typical slice. The ball's gonna start slightly left of the target due to the minimal effect of swing path on start direction, but the massive separation between the club path and face angle will make the shot curve way too much to make it functional. So say goodbye to that shot, it's in the water or the trees. So to fix this, the golfer has two options. They can reduce the extremity of their swing path, or they can get the face more closed relative to the target line. Usually a mixture of both is going to help this golfer. But let me show you how just adjusting the face angle can bring this shot into what I call more functional territory, something that you can play with on the course. If this slicer learned to get their club face a little bit more closed relative to the target, now you're gonna have a functional fade instead of this huge banana slice. Generally speaking, with most clubs, you want the club face pointing somewhere between your club path and the target line. But the bigger the separation between swing path and face angle, the bigger problem you have. Here's an example of a push slice. With a face that's way too open at impact, you get a ball that starts to the right and curves even farther right. Again, that's going to be in a recovery situation or a lost ball. And what's potentially worse than that is if you have a club face that's way too closed, you get arguably the worst shot in golf, which is the double cross. So in this situation, the ball would start way left of the target and hook. So no matter what club you're using, you can think of face control as the glue that holds everything together, even your putter. Generally speaking, most golfers' club paths are way more consistent than their face angle on each shot. So in other words, the golfer who has the slice is usually going to show up with a very out to in swing path. But from swing to swing, the club face is going to be way too open or too closed, resulting in these pull hooks or slices. And I would argue that professional golf is actually one big competition of face control. It's that important. Other impact skills like strike location and turf interaction are going to be really similar at the pro level. But the reason we keep seeing Scottie Scheffler at the top of every leaderboard is because he's the absolute best at pointing the club where he wants to at impact. Now the problem is most golfers don't think about club face awareness or even train for it. That's why I'm making this video. Where you place your emphasis and attention in the golf swing can have serious ramifications. I like to think of playing better golf as simply a series of small club face adjustments. For example, if I'm playing and I notice most of my tee shots or iron shots are going to the right, I'm gonna try and use my skills to get that club face a little bit more closed at impact. And having what I call internal reference points is a game changer. For me to make these changes, it might be how I set up to the ball with how open or closed the face is. And another big cue for me is rotating my trail forearm and wrist through the golf swing. The problem is that you can't make these adjustments if you're not practicing properly and noticing this feedback on and off the golf course. And most importantly, knowing the role of face angle and how it affects your ball flight, which hopefully now you've learned from this video, can help explain why you're seeing certain shots on the golf course. Once you start learning to control the face a bit more, it can open a whole new world for you. I really can't think of one golf swing I've made over the last 10 years where on some level I don't have awareness of where my club face is. I'm literally always thinking, is it too open or closed? So much so that the second the ball leaves the club face, I'm usually internally aware of where the club was pointing even before my eyes see where the ball traveled. Now here's the million-dollar question. Well, actually it's probably worth hundreds of millions of dollars at the highest level. How do you get better club face control? Here are some quick ideas. I'm a huge proponent of getting swing lessons at some point, especially with an instructor who is good at working with the unique matchups in your swing rather than someone who just teaches one version of the golf swing. Now this topic could take over 20 hours of explanation, probably even hundreds of hours, but there are so many reasons why certain moves you're making throughout your golf swing are leading to poor face control. So I think getting customized help with your golf swing is always a good idea at some point. If you can't find someone locally, I think online lessons are becoming a much better option. I'll give a quick shout out to the Skillest platform if you're looking for an online coach, but most players are on their own and they're gonna have to find a way to practice to improve their face control. One of the easiest ways to do this is taking a lower lofted iron like your 7-iron and simply challenge yourself to start the ball in different directions. Can you start it left of your target, right of your target, and down the target line? You can start experimenting with different grips, weak, neutral, strong. Years ago, I figured out that that a really strong grip was a good matchup for my swing and led to more club face control. Or I might just keep it a little bit more open or closed at address just to remind myself of my preferred impact position. Eventually, you want to find something that can help you adjust the face when you need it. As I said earlier, a big one for me is the rotation of my trail forearm and wrist throughout the golf swing. I'm always paying attention to this when I need to place more emphasis on face control. If you like data and measuring things, you can use a product like HackMotion, which I talked about earlier. Either way, this is where a ton of your attention should be. That is the best starting point for anyone. There's so many things that compete for your attention with the golf swing, and sometimes we overlook something so basic like where is the club face pointing at impact and where is my ball starting? Don't get me wrong, I believe this is the hardest battle in golf. It's not easy. There are tour players who are literally losing sleep over this every single night. The truth about golf is that every day you're going to show up with a different club face orientation, and you're just gonna have to do your best to manage that. It's just a variable that never disappears. Hopefully you've gotten some information in this video that will now point you in the right direction. And don't miss my other video where I give you 7 habits every golfer needs to get better at this game without touching your swing.